Donald Trump is back in the White House tonight as the 47th president of the United States, completing his stunning political comeback. His inauguration took place today inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, and as Katie Nicholson tells us, he wasted little time in starting work on his priorities.
Call it a do-over, as President-elect Donald Trump waited at the White House steps for wife Melania to join him. Back in 2017, he was heavily criticized for leaving her behind when he shook hands with the Obamas. This inauguration, also a do-over of sorts, a return to tradition. Church and tea at the White House with the outgoing administration, something Trump didn't do when he left office 4 years ago. A brutal cold snap forced organizers to move the ceremony indoors for the first time since 1985, when an icy blast forced Ronald Reagan to recite his oath inside.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
The frigid temperatures outside did nothing to chill the blazing pace of executive orders from the new administration.
I will very simply put America first.
Last time round, Trump only signed one executive order on his first day. This time, dozens expected, declaring an emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, declaring the U.S. will only recognize 2 biological sexes, and then there were these words on the Panama Canal.
And we're taking it back.
A pledge that went over well in the Capitol. Less so in Panama, where protesters set Old Glory ablaze. Inaugurations are known for their awkward moments. There was a technical glitch.
If you know the words, help me out here.
Country star Carrie Underwood saved the day
America.
with an a cappella version of America the Beautiful. President Joe Biden was also busy on this, his last day in office, issuing last-minute pardons to Dr. Anthony Fauci, members of the January 6th committee, and 5 family members, citing fears of baseless and politically motivated investigations. As the Bidens flew away, the newly sworn-in president held court, as thousands braved the cold to celebrate Trump and the new America they hope he ushers in. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, Trump's promise of tariffs against Canadian goods isn't happening for now. Premier Doug Ford has connected a potential early election call to these tariffs, saying he needs a new mandate in order to better support Ontarians who will be affected. So what does that mean now? Our Queen's Park reporter, Lorenda Redekop, is following that part of the story. Lorenda, what did you hear from the Premier today?
Well, even though that immediate threat of tariffs is now gone, Premier Ford is still continuing by saying that he needs a mandate from the people of Ontario. So he's still saying he needs that mandate. His messaging, though, it expanded, including something else in his rationale. Clearly, he is still seriously thinking about heading to the polls early.
Make no mistake about it, he's coming for us. Is it tomorrow, or is it a month down the road?
Even though U.S. President Donald Trump did not add tariffs against Canadian goods, this was the response from Premier Doug Ford.
So an election's not on the back burner?
And I need a clear mandate from the people of Ontario to fight against these tariffs.
Trump did mention tariffs in his inauguration speech, saying he's creating an external revenue service.
To collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources.
According to U.S. media reports, he'll launch a study into trade, including with Canada, but so far not add tariffs. The opposition leader spoke to rural leaders, taking a jab at Premier Ford.
Yeah, we need an early provincial election. Yeah. You know what? It doesn't make sense. That's why nobody's saying it.
Later, she said now is the time to be united. And she agrees with the Premier that there seems to be more uncertainty today.
If Mr. Ford sees in that uncertainty an opportunity, then rather than actually caring about the 500,000 people who could potentially lose their jobs, he seems to only be concerned with the loss of one job, and that's his own.
Hours before Trump's speech, Ford already announced a countermeasure he's prepared to add.
And I've sent a direction to the LCBO, if these tariffs come, to clear off every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves.
Though it's unclear if that will end up happening.
When you've got threats like this kicking around, it gives you an indication of how vulnerable consumers are in a trade war where costs are likely to go up if tariffs are imposed and consumer choice is likely to drop.
While the premier already has a majority, he repeated that people need to give him a mandate.
This is ongoing. This is going to be for 4 years with Donald Trump. He wants to undermine us any which way he can. And I'm going to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that I protect the people of Ontario. We need a clear mandate, not for tomorrow, not for the next day, for 4 years of dealing with our American friends.
And that seems to be his new argument as of today. Ford is saying that he and his government need a new mandate for dealing with President Trump. Kelda?
All right, thanks so much for that, Lorenda. Our Lorenda Redicott reporting for us tonight. Turning to some other news, one man is dead after an overnight shooting in Mississauga. Peel police initially responded to a single vehicle crash. It's now believed the victim may have been fleeing an altercation moments before. Dale Manukduk has more.
Around 1:45 Monday morning, Peel police received a call about a van crashed into the ditch along Dixie Road, just south of Dairy Road East in Mississauga. Its driver was found with gunshot wounds.
Upon arrival, we did locate the driver, an adult male who had significant injuries. This driver was transported to a trauma center where he has unfortunately now been pronounced deceased.
While early in the investigation, it was determined that the victim was around here at an industrial plaza on Midway Boulevard, about 2 kilometers southwest of the crash site.
The police guy came here, and then I confirmed from what happened, sir, over there. He says the one person be died.
Terrifying. It's terrifying, especially, you know, when I come in early in the morning. It's the last thing you expect when you come into work. You just think you're going to come in and do your job, not having to worry about shootings and everything like that when you go to work. So, very scary.
Evidence markers lined the roadway through the afternoon. Police say there was an altercation and the man was shot. He attempted to flee the area, and that's when he crashed through the chain link fence of a trucking yard.
Our victim is 24-year-old Gurvinder Singh of Caledon. Right now, our Homicide Bureau is looking for anyone who has any dash cam footage, witness information, or anything of that nature to please reach out to our homicide investigators, or if you wish to remain anonymous, Crime Stoppers.
It's unclear if the shooting or the crash is what caused the victim's death. A coroner's investigation is underway. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Mississauga.
A dramatic rescue at the waterfront late last night. First responders had to dive into the freezing lake to pull people trapped in a car. Clara Pasica has more from Ashbridges Bay.
Toronto Fire, Toronto paramedics, and Toronto police all worked together at this scene here around 9:30 last night at Ashbridges Bay, just off the public launch, to rescue people from a car that had been submerged in Lake Ontario. We've learned this morning from Toronto police that a woman who was taken to hospital in critical condition has died. Here's a spokesperson for Toronto Police and Toronto Fire explaining how the night unfolded.
Primary response officers from 55 Division arrived within minutes. The adult male driver was out of the vehicle. However, there was a female passenger that was still inside the car. Officers entered the freezing water and began a rescue attempt of the passenger. Marine unit officers arrived shortly after and also entered the water. Both occupants were taken to the hospital along with 4 of our officers that jumped into the water. Sadly, the female passenger was pronounced deceased this morning.
Toronto Fire, Toronto Police, and Toronto paramedics were dispatched to a vehicle in the water. When Toronto Fire got on scene, we donned our ice water rescue gear and sent a crew into the water. They removed 1 person from the vehicle. That person was transferred to Toronto paramedics.
The male driver of the submerged vehicle was found on top of the roof when rescuers arrived. He was also taken to hospital. There are also 4 Toronto police officers transported to hospital who had to battle the elements, but they have since been released. Now, Toronto Forensics has been on scene this morning since the woman passed away. Toronto police are asking for anyone with any information about this incident to contact them. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
After a couple of days of milder weather over the weekend, we are back to frigid temperatures right across the province. Our Greg Ross is at the Bentway skating path, where some people are braving those temperatures for some fun on the ice. And Greg, it's been a while since we've seen weather this cold.
That's right, Kelda. We haven't seen temperatures drop down this low since 2023. This is what you call the dead of winter. The days are still pretty short. It can get absolutely frigid out here. Not exactly the greatest temperatures for an evening skate, but we've still got about a dozen people down here at the Bentway who have come out despite these cold temperatures. The key, Kelda, is you have to dress for it. If you're going to be taking part in outdoor activities like ice skating over the next few days, be sure to bundle up.
I have on three layers under this, and this is pretty thick. This is a Helly Hansen, it's pretty heavy, so it's toasting here.
Some thick gloves, a toque, and then some tights inside beneath my jeans.
The next few days will be some of the coldest we've seen in the past year.
It is just really cold Arctic, polar, Alaskan, Yukon, Siberian air. It is just coming down right over the heart of North America.
With temperatures dipping down to the high minus teens overnight, skin can freeze fast, which can be dangerous.
We see people who have frostbites in their extremities. We see people who are profoundly hypothermic sometimes. So these are the biggest danger that we see.
Dr. Samuel Viancourt is an emergency physician at St. Michael's Hospital. He says the emergency rooms are also places where people in need will go to escape the cold.
We do see an increase for sure in people seeking warmth and shelter. That's not a role that we're very appropriate for. But it is sometimes then, in extreme cases, for sure, a role that these days, downtown Toronto, we are filling.
They often have no other options with city shelters at capacity.
The city has opened up all the spaces that it can for people, but at this moment, we have people who are being turned away, who aren't able to actually access that warm space.
The city has opened 5 warming centers, as well as 2 additional emergency surge warming centers, but space there is limited. It's forcing people to look for other alternatives.
I'm finding is that people are staying in libraries. They're just hunkering down on transit because they can just stay there.
The good news is the frigid temperatures are only supposed to last until about midweek.
The rest of this week, we're going to actually get some relief, not above freezing. I see temperatures still staying below the freezing mark. But for example, on Friday, with a high of -4.
Yeah, that will be a lot closer to the normals for this time of year, according to Dave Phillips from Environment Canada. He also says there's more good news in the fact that we are coming to the end of the low point of winter. As we get past January, we'll see the days start to get a little bit longer. We'll see gradually the temperatures start to climb up and get a little warmer. And he said the other great thing about this is the fact that we can now say that there is more winter behind us than there is ahead of us, Kelda.
Okay, I like the sound of that. All right, thanks so much, Greg. Greg Ross reporting from the Bentway.
Nice shuttle gets the puck. McDavid mixing it up with Garland. They were in a wrestling match.
And that hit on Vancouver's Connor Garland has resulted in a 3-game suspension for Richmond Hill's Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. McDavid was given a penalty late in the Canucks' 3-2 win Saturday when he slammed his stick into Garland's head. The NHL's Department of Player Safety said McDavid retaliated against Garland aggressively and intentionally. It's only the second suspension of the 28-year-old's career. Toronto's Board of Health has voted to intervene in a court case that will shutter some supervised consumption sites, as a report warns the closure of sites could be deadly. Sarah McMillan reports.
In the last few years, there have been hundreds of thousands of visits to supervised consumption sites across Toronto. At the end of March, at least 5 sites in the city will have to close because a new provincial law doesn't allow them near schools or daycares and blocks new sites from opening.
It's completely untenable to manage the level of devastation, frankly, that is about to happen.
An organization that operates a site in Kensington Market has launched a court challenge against that law. And today, the Toronto Board of Health voted to seek intervener status.
We will be there to work with our community partners to keep this life-saving measure in place.
This comes as the board received a report today from the city's acting medical officer of health, which says the closure of the supervised consumption sites will likely add strain on paramedics and lead to more deaths.
If there is substance use that was previously done indoors and under supervision in supervised consumption sites, we can anticipate that some of those overdoses will occur elsewhere.
From March 2020 to May last year, staff at supervised consumption sites across the city responded to nearly 11,000 overdoses, none of which were fatal. Dr. Nakashi Lamptey says we'll likely soon see more overdoses in public spaces, as well as in people's homes.
And that is concerning because one of the large risk factors for fatal overdoses is when people use alone and there isn't someone to intervene and help reverse their overdose.
The Board of Health is urging the province to make a plan for dealing with the medical strain and to allow new consumption sites to open in locations that are not near childcare. The Ministry of Health didn't say if it is considering those asks. In a statement, it says it's focused on treatment and recovery and is responding to community safety concerns, including reports of children picking up dirty needles.
You'll see more needles. You'll see more people overdosing. Things don't change just because we wish them to change.
Sites that are forced to close can apply to become hubs that focus on addictions treatment, but not harm reduction. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
A 12-year-old chess prodigy from Mississauga has become the youngest Canadian to win an international master title. Aaron Mendez is adding that to his list of accomplishments after taking first place at a major tournament last month in Virginia. Tyreek Reed has his story.
This is the move E4. I usually play this in most of my games. It's called the King's Pawn opening, and I really like it because it's really aggressive and I'm an aggressive player.
Aaron Mendez says it's one of his signature moves that helps him get the advantage over his opponents. It's just one reason why he's now Canada's youngest international master.
I felt really happy, and all the congrats I got from my family really helped.
The 12-year-old won the title last month at the 2024 North American Youth Chess Championship. It's the third time he's competed in the tournament, and the first time he's been able to bring home the trophy, adding it to a growing collection he's been amassing since he was 5. And while he might make it look easy, he says it takes a lot of work.
I usually have to spend about 3 hours a day into preparing, since it's really hard to know what your opponent's going to play. So I just try to revise my own opening lines rather than focusing on what they're going to do, but it's equally important too.
All the hard work has paid off. Mendez now competes in tournaments around the world. He also captains his school's chess team, making this young master a teacher.
The pawns on the first move can move twice.
And of course, a winner.
Checkmate.
And though he's faced some losses along the way, he says his family has always been there to pick him back up.
We are very excited and happy for him. And IM title is what his dream was. We have made space for the trophies now for him. So we expect to get more.
My family always supported me, win or loss. And that's really good since losing is learning. So they really supported me.
And he's not done learning yet, sharing these words of wisdom.
For all the young kids who want to play chess, remember success does not come early. You always need to practice because practice makes perfect.
He says his next goal is to become a world champion. Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Mississauga.
Let's go to Riley Lachuk now with a check on our forecast. And Riley, an extremely cold one out there today.
Well, Kelda, I thought I'd take a look at where we started today. Certainly a cold one out there, really cold right across southern Ontario. So minus 12s this morning for Toronto, for Hamilton. But look at, if you don't have to go that far north, North Bay, Barrie, minus 26, minus 28 through the morning hours today. Here's where we ended up this afternoon. Minus 10 in Toronto, minus 19 in North Bay, Barrie, minus 12, Kitchener, minus 11. So below seasonal for this time of the year all around. And we are looking at that cold hanging on for the next couple of days at least. So here's your upper level atmosphere. And you can see this real deep dive in the jet stream here, really allowing all of that cold Arctic air to really set in across much of the continent. That does stay in place as we get through the next few days at least. But we do, as you see, starting on Thursday here, do start to see a little bit of relief. I know still some of these darker blue colors, which are some of those colder temperatures, but not as cold as we will see for tomorrow morning, the next couple of mornings at least. As we get into Saturday, you can start to see our pattern shifting closer to the jet stream, which means closer to some of that warmer southerly air as we get into the weekend, Saturday into Sunday. So with that comes the chance that we could see more lake effect snow, particularly along the shores of Lake Huron, Georgian Bay. You can see some of these streamers as we see a more westerly flow moving across the lake, pushing some of that snow on shore. In the GTA, the Niagara region, this is a chance of flurries, albeit slim, that we could see a few more flurries, but I know we did see some really gusty winds today up to 60 kilometers an hour. And what that has done is really suddenly reduced visibility on highways in some cases. So if it wasn't the cold, it was certainly the reduced visibility out on some of the open highways that we saw through the day. And that risk persisting as we get through Tuesday, albeit slim into Wednesday at least. Once we get into Thursday, that's when we see a more widespread risk of seeing some accumulating snow, at least through the early part of the day. So as we head into the day on Tuesday, we do see winds staying very strong, gusts up to 60 through cottage country, up to 50 in the Toronto area. So another windy day. As we head through the day tomorrow, waking up to minus 16 in Toronto first thing in the morning, minus 18s through London and Kitchener. It's below seasonal for this time of the year, and we stay below seasonal as we get through Tuesday and Wednesday. Minus 12 tomorrow, wind chill in the morning, minus 26, minus 9 for Wednesday, and then Kelda, we start to get a bit of sun back as we get through Thursday into Friday before we get to more seasonal conditions on Saturday with a slight chance of flurries.
Thanks so much, Riley. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.